It was a 7.0 earthquake that lasted 11 seconds, but it truly felt like 11 hours. And the events that took place afterwards have marked me since then. Hello, my name is Faith Grosshans. That's like the worst last name ever, but that's okay. I'll marry out of it. I am going to talk about my very first mission trip, which happened 10 years ago, which took place in Haiti in 2010, which is right when the earthquake happened on January 12th. I was 15 years old at the time. All growing up, we were making Christmas shoeboxes for my sponsor child, Evelyn. I had been writing notes to her back and forth, and so this trip was the first time that I was going to be able to meet her. I remember driving into Port-au-Prince from leaving the airport, and it was such a culture shock. I think the Lord was really developing a heart in me for ministry and for His people. On January 12th, we woke up really early that morning, and we went and saw the sunrise up on one of the mountains in Haiti, and it was one of the most beautiful things that I've ever encountered. And it's so interesting that such a beautiful start to our day, and by the end of the day, it would just end completely different. Around lunchtime, we had just finished doing some village ministry, and I remember I was sitting there at one of the tables in the kitchen with my sponsor child, her mom, her name's Christine Webb, and she was doing a story for just a news channel back at home that she was a part of, and then our translator, Martha. That was when the earthquake happened. Living in Florida, you don't really have earthquake drills, you have tornado drills, and so I was ready to jump underneath the table, and I do know that we fell to the ground and it just split right in front of us. And while this is happening, Christine is over me praying, and Martha, our translator, stood the whole time with her arms open wide, just praying over us, praying over the people of Haiti, just to the Lord that He was gonna show up in the midst of all of this. And just like that, it was over. And from there, it was like from one problem to the next. Dad had found out that there was an earthquake immediately right after it had happened and had texted the president of New Missions, tsunami warning, get out, get out, get out. The thing you have to realize is that we were staying right on the beach. We jumped in the back of these two trucks and started heading for higher ground. I was sitting next to Christine and she said, "Faith, put your head down." You don't really ask questions anymore at this point, you just do what you're told. And so I put my head down and I started hearing just people talking at the very end of the truck. And it turns out, when we started moving, I asked Christine what happened, and she said there were local women who were trying to give us their babies. They didn't think that they could take care of them and wanted us to take them. There was another point where I remember looking out the truck and just seeing this basketball court filled with people, just bodies, and not knowing if those people were okay or not. Because later on, when you saw that, sorry, it was around 200,000 people that they estimated had died in the earthquake. So we ended up sleeping outside for the night, and we had around 45 aftershocks. And many of the aftershocks could have been categorized as their own earthquake. The magnitude of them was insane. And so just constantly throughout the night, we were just being reminded of what had happened. So we had this group of believers, and then behind us, we could hear some people practicing voodoo. And you have to understand that voodoo is the national religion for Haiti. And the people who were practicing voodoo eventually stopped throughout the night. And the believers who were with New Missions, They sang worship throughout the entire night. And in fact, when there was an aftershock, it felt like they got louder in their worship. And then one of our team members also said it best, just looking at these two different groups and how the people who were doing voodoo stopped and those who were leading worship went on the entire night. And that's just the concept that the light always outshines the darkness. When I tell you that one trip, I probably saw more miracles unfold than most, I truly mean it. And from there, it was like a James Bond movie. We had Blackhawks and passport issues, and we were crossing borders and trying to make it out. And we eventually, on the 15th, made it back home. We thought that we were going to have to explain what happened, that no one knew what happened. And then coming home and realizing that this was a big deal. I went home that night and I laid in my bed, and I remember thinking, I'm so glad I got to see my family. Now when do we go back? As a 15-year-old, I think I began to be obsessed with the presence of God. And wherever that took me, whatever plan He had for my life, I wanted to be there. If that led me to some scary places, then that just meant that I was going to see Him all the more. Even for us, as you hear this story, I want you to walk away with an excitement to serve God's people. Because as believers, we understand that when we serve God's people, we're in turn serving Him. And that delights the heart of the Father, and there's nothing more that we should desire or want from that.